how's this? Yeah, there we go. All right, awesome. Well, hey, good morning, everyone. Always great for those that actually make it to the 9 a.m. session on a Tuesday. My name is Deda. I'm one of the co-founders of Denver Startup Week, and I'm also going to be one of the panelists here, so you're going to hear a little bit more from me as we go through. But this is what I was excited for on it because restaurants and food and that are such a big, important part of my life, both professionally with what I do, but then even just personally. Great having Larry up here. 730 South, which was his restaurant, was a place that we ended up after every single Broncos game with my father-in-law, so it was a big part of what we did. So it's great having him up here and some other great panelists. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Larry, and we'll talk robots, AI, and what impact they have on restaurants.
Thank you, Ben. My name is Larry Herz. I was in the restaurant business for 29 years in Denver and owned 6 different restaurants. My first is the legendary Carmine's on Penn. I started when I was 27 years old. Borrowed $75,000 from my dad, and the rent was $1,300 a month. Paying waiters $2 an hour back then. Good old days. And since then, I had 5 other restaurants. My last was 730 South, as Ben said, in Bonnie Bray. And I hit the wall 6 years ago. Few factors: the labor market, rent, property taxes, and not seeing my kids grow up owning restaurants. So I reinvented myself and became a restaurant promoter. Some people call me an influencer. I don't like that word at all. So now I'm OCN Eats on TikTok. I have 34,000 followers there. OCN Eats on Instagram, 30,000. And every Friday night at 4:20 on CBS, you can see me. It's called Dining Out with Larry, and I feature a different restaurant every week. Married, 2 kids. Got a great dog named Lucky. Peter?
My name is Peter. I moved out to Colorado from Charleston, South Carolina about 14, 15 years ago. My partner and I own the Gustamo Restaurant Group. We're a multi-concept operator here in Denver. One of the restaurants that we started that at least is most relevant for the conversation today is Birdcall. We built all of our own proprietary tech in-house, trying to solve 2, core problems. One is how can we have live loyalty, change the guest experience during the guest dining, and then 2, variable wages through the kitchen display device, right? How can we make live time adjustments to support team members and set them up to be successful? Our other restaurants in Denver consist of Perdita Kitchen, Homegrown, Park Burger, Parking Company, and Lady Nomada. So, my side of the business is really focused on concept creation, fundraising, and my partner, Jean-Philippe Failio, has a long background in culinary, went to the French Culinary Institute. So it's been a really wonderful partnership, and so excited to see where today goes. Ben?
As I said, Deda. My day job is I'm the CEO of FoodMaven. FoodMaven's a procurement AI for food service. So for anyone who's used Honey on their own personal side of a little browser extension that helps tell you when there's a discount and you shop, we have a similar type of tool that's for restaurant operators. So it's a browser extension that they install, and then as they're shopping on their distributor's site, we're finding the products that match whatever's important to them, whether that's products that they get a rebate on, sustainability goals, what diverse supplier goals, taking that work out of it so that they automatically know what options are available to them. So we've just partnered with one of the largest GPOs out there that has 180,000 clients, so excited to start to see our stuff get in the hands of the operators out there. Diego.
Good morning, everyone. Ben, thank you so much for the invitation. Super honored to be here in this stage with such seasoned entrepreneurs. I'm a first-generation Mexican immigrant, also a first-time founder. And my team and I built Chamba, a diverse platform to solve the staffing needs of restaurants, cultural attractions. We focus on staff on demand and the fluctuating needs on staff that these food places have.
Something that we really needed in this industry. You really solved a problem. What do you guys see as the biggest opportunities and challenges for restaurants? And
Staffing, yes, especially when we're talking about like seasonal needs, staff, and the quality of staff. So that's what we're trying to solve and what we're solving for. And what we see is that giving access to job opportunities to a diverse group of communities tends to solve part of that problem.
Can you explain how Chamba works, actually?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are enabling a community that has been in the shadows when it comes to technology, which is the Latino community. So making jobs more accessible to diverse communities has created a larger pool of candidates, and that's how we can get locations staffed up.
So if I own a restaurant, how do I work with Chamba?
So you go into the site, post a shift, and the pros show up. So we're building the Uber, the Lyft for the hospitality industry. So it's as easy as submitting a request and the staff shows up.
It's kind of like a temp agency?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think from our end, staffing is a piece of it, but definitely what I see with the operators that we work with is time on it. Is they're always rushing from one thing to the next, trying to get there, and so when they're trying to solve a problem, whether it's labor or what's happening with their food costs, which has been one of the other huge challenges in the last 2 to 3 years. It's tough. It's tough for them to be able to take the time to actually try to solve it, and so it usually tends to be some sort of Band-Aid put on it overall. And so that's why I think some of this discussion today is on the plus side of where AI and robots can do is hopefully help to gain them some of that time so that they can actually make sure that their business is running the way that they want it to.
And I guess I would, add to that, and at least operating these restaurants is just the volatility of the market. I mean, it's insane. If you look at even Denver industry, I mean, beginning of the year, same-store sales were up 20%. In June, they were down 6%. I mean, I've never seen this level of ping-ponging, and that also paired with how challenging it is to get a GC, and now it's easy to get a GC. And so you adjust your business, and then everything completely changes. The beginning of this year, we were building in Dallas. We couldn't even find a GC to build our projects. Now we're having GCs knock on our doors it's unbelievable. So, when I look back on the last couple of years, just the constant pivoting that was necessary to continue to build your business was insane. Even right now, we know there's a tightening of the market. You can see it. There's 12 periods of same-store sales decline across the United States in the restaurant industry. And so we know something is coming, or at least we anticipate it. So it's now, how do we adjust for a lower sales volume and figure out where we can squeeze out that margin to continue to be able to build and through a more challenging time. But last 3 years, I mean, previously, before COVID, I mean, you'd see 5-6% growth. Everything, it was just about if you execute well, your store is going to grow. Now it's all bets are off. And then when you layer all this new technology on top of that and all of these changes, it's just, you got to be ready to adapt. You have to be humble, and you got to be ready to learn very quickly.
Are you seeing staffing as a problem?
I'm seeing staffing become easier. Now I think our biggest challenge is scaling operations and systems for retaining good team members. I think one of the biggest opportunities for us is, how do we become better leaders? And of course, that's a constant lesson that you're learning. But, we're fully staffed across both restaurant groups, Gestamo Group and Birdcall. But now it's about how do we retain quality talent. And 6 months ago, it was much worse where, I mean, you'd lose a great team member, they'd take 15 people with them, and then you'd have to backfill. So we're not seeing as much of that. Now it's really about how do we set them up to be successful.
So going on to the future, do you see yourself looking for technology to replace staffing?
I mean, I think we're always looking for technology to complement staffing, right? And that was the whole model with Birdcall, where we built our own proprietary tech stack with the original idea of how do we automate the order, right? So Pete comes in the restaurant, he orders at a kiosk or an advanced order, his name shows up on a board, and then he picks his order up in a bay. We called it a single point of contact, just a really seamless experience for an efficient flow. Now this is in the fast food section or sector. And, the original idea was, okay, how do we reduce the staff necessary to operate this restaurant? But it completely shifted. And then it was well, now how do we use team members to complement the dining experience? And how can we use this as a competitive advantage to offer hospitality in a setting that traditionally wouldn't have it? So we always say, rather a team focus on how's your day? How can we better assist you? Than focus on, do you want fries with that? But the technology has made a huge shift, and now it's how do we set our team members not only up to be successful short and long term, but how do we build an efficient restaurant? Because one of the biggest problems that I see in operating our restaurants on a daily basis is just the inefficiency. You need a certain amount of people to make it through a rush. You don't need a certain amount of people when they arrive at the door. And so there's just all of this waste throughout the day of a restaurant. And so we're really trying to solve that, because it's also not fun. Like, nobody wants to come to work and just stand there. So we're looking for a ton of opportunities there. So I don't think we're necessarily trying to say, hey, how do we release team members? But it's how do we make team members more efficient and you know, to make their day, frankly, a lot more fun.
As wages go up, is there a point where you can't afford to pay people to wait tables?
I don't know. I mean, I've got mixed views, and you know, just really my high level view on the fast food sector. So when COVID hit, all of a sudden, fast food restaurants got a huge lift in sales volume because people felt safe, right? You felt safe going to, you know, whatever, McDonald's, because you didn't have to interact with anyone. You could literally like just throw it in the car. I'll see you later. But what I'm seeing across the country is that we way overbuilt that segment. And you know, the story I keep sharing is I was down in Dallas and I saw like 23 new restaurants, and like 22 of them were fast food, QSR, coffee, quick service restaurants. One of them was a Twin Peaks. So, you know, and we've built in the fast casual sector, and I believe in that. But the point is, I think COVID hit, there was this huge sales lift based on the safety. Then a lot of these builders VE'd their restaurants, meaning they took out some of the experiential design to make the restaurant just more efficient. They took out dining rooms, they took out all of this stuff. And then that real estate got extremely competitive. And, you know, and I think there's gonna be a big falling out on these fast food. So, you know, my honest perspective is like, it's hard to replace that hospitality experience. Do we need ways to make traditional full service dining more efficient? Absolutely. Are there ways to speed it up? Are there ways to make it better? Are there going back to how do we make team members more efficient? There's got to be you know, maybe it's going to be less of a gap between the front and the back, and it's really like, what's that full team service? But I think frankly, there's a huge opportunity in the full service section right now, or sector right now.
I'm sure you guys are all seeing robots appearing in restaurants. Maybe you're seeing it on TikTok or YouTube. What do you guys think of that? Do you want a robot bringing food to your table?
I think Pete's really got it on there, where it's about what can you do to augment, and if it can be done in a way that augments the staff and still has the customer service, it can work well. And then it's I guess what would be interesting to see is whether or not you see the same type of thing in restaurants that you see in a lot of other hospitality, which is the hollowing out of the middle, right? Where everything's either going to the fast food, where a lot of it maybe is robots and less people, or it's the very experiential, very expensive piece to it, and you kind of lose that centerpiece, which I think would be a bummer on it overall, because a lot of those are our favorite places to go. But yeah, as we were talking about before, I'm not sure I really want to sit there and watch my burger get 3D printed like they're doing at DU with Sodexo right now. But I don't know. I guess at the end of the day, if it tastes great and it gets to your table, you might be good with it.
No, I think learning how to work with AI, with robots, is the way to go. It's not, hey, do we replace what and when, but learning how to work together, and also, I mean, how do you train and upskill your staff to work well with AI and robots?
I think, you know, at least to jump into that, I think we're kind of in this totally weird stage, right? And I tell a lot of restaurant operators, I'm like, don't completely change your tech stack right now, because especially with all of these AI writing tools and the speed at which we're developing technology, I mean, everything that's going to be delivered in the next 2 to 3 years is going to be insane and going to completely change this industry. It's kind of like, you know, I really want an electric car, but I can't make it all the way up to the hills and back, and I don't really want to stop. So when they figure out that gap, then I think it's going to make a lot more sense. And you're seeing that across the robots in the hospitality industry from the technology tools. I mean, you know, everybody's probably seen Chippy or Flippy, which is the robot that flips a burger. It measures temperature on a burger. I mean, all these tools require manual labor to load. And so then you got this huge robot in the center of your kitchen line, and you're like, I gotta prep this thing, I gotta load this thing, and it's more of a gimmick right now. When they figure out how to get from a hopper all the way to delivered food and where it's positioned to where it can easily go out, it's gonna start to make a lot more sense. But the same thing, you know, I still kind of go back, what are those tools that are gonna that make you more efficient, but not going to change that hospitality experience. And I truly believe what you say. It's like there's going to be the functional dining that is going to be like, I don't care if it's made by a robot. I want to spend as little as possible, and I want it to be as healthy or as perfect for my diet. And then there's going to be like, okay, I want to actually go out for a dinner, and maybe I don't want a robot. But it's funny, man. I was even at Chili's the other day scouting, looking at a restaurant, and they've now said they're not going to use their little robots. But it was a dead restaurant, and I was like, I want the robot to take me to my table, please. I mean, the robot got lost. I didn't know which one of the 4 tables it was pointing at.
Chili's using robots?
They've now pulled the program, but they were using. I think she had a name, and she would guide you to your table and then to let you off. But
anybody have any idea what something like that costs?
I think they're not that expensive. Yeah, I don't know if they work, but but it's even interesting. I mean, I fell in love. The whole Birdcall model was based on this brand called Eatsa. Did any of y'all check out Eatsa when they were open? It was the first like 100% automated restaurant in San Francisco. I mean, I remember going out there and just being absolutely blown away. And you ordered on a kiosk. It tracked your order, told you where to pick it up. Hoppers were filling it, and then it would come out of this transparent glass bay with like, Peter Newlin, here's your order in this bay, and it opened up, and you would see nobody. It's interesting. Eatsa had the approach of, hey, we want to be a tech startup that serves food. We've kind of had the approach of like, we're a restaurant company. Can we build technologies that's going to make us more efficient? Both are very, very hard. But it was really interesting to see that. So,
yeah, I think for seeing the real application of stuff right now, it is about where can it augment versus replace. Because I think to Pete's point, the replacement stuff tends to not really be that great. So the question is where can you find the work that people don't want to do or don't have the time to do, and can you use an AI, can you use a machine to take that off their hands with it overall? And that's what we try to do on our side, because obviously, I think both as operators, right, taking the time to actually spreadsheet out your distributor's catalog and figure out, okay, wait, where's my replacement product that I should buy, or what has the best cost this month? It takes a lot of time, so people just don't do it. So, okay, now is this something that's appropriate that we can give to a machine that they can do it for you and just eliminate the work, right? And then make it easy. So where can you do that on the back line? Where can you do that front of house? Where can you do that with the paying at the end of the day? Those are the opportunities that are real right now, and I think that you're actually seeing operators put in, and hopefully it doesn't negatively affect the customer experience.
Is your company, does it use AI?
Yeah, so I mean that's entirely what we built on it. So we developed a algorithm that has the ability to take a description within a catalog and understand exactly, okay, this is what that product is. These are chicken breasts, and then okay, how many characteristics does it share with what you're looking for? Are you looking for organic? Are you looking for frozen? All that, and actually do the matching based on that. And so that's what powers our shopping assistant.
So how does that literally work? Like if I'm a restaurant owner and I'm trying to order chicken breasts.
Yeah. So the way that it works is when you go onto Cisco or US Foods website, our browser extension is reading all the data that's on that page and then comparing it against the entire catalog that's available to you, and then matching back, oh, here's the products that are similar. And then we simply insert a little icon next to it that when you click on it, brings up all those alternative products. So you can automatically see, okay, here's everything that's available to me right now. And then we filter it based on what's important. So for instance, let's say you're with a GPO and you get a rebate on that product, we'll show you all the products that have a rebate. Or if you have certain sustainability goals, we'll show you all the ones that match that based on a list that you've given to us. And so again, it's not doing work you couldn't do yourself, but as opposed to you having to go through 1,000 SKUs, we do it for you, and then you're ultimately the one that still makes the decision.
With pack sizes being different, does it convert?
Yep, we do all that piece to it. But what's funny is the last piece of it is still the part that's so human, because no one agrees on what's a good match, right? It's so funny as we'll have it on. It's so determinant on the chef and the operator of, okay, wait a sec, is that actually something I think is a good substitute? I mean, it depends on what the ingredient is, how is it being prepared. Depends on what the price difference is. It depends on how badly you need it that week, right? Or whether or not you're willing to do it. And so that's why it still is a human at the end of the day that ultimately makes the decision. But we try to give them tools to make it easier.
When it comes to scheduling, Are you guys using AI or computers to schedule staff? Because we all know, when you first open, it's dead for the first hour, and then you get crushed, and then you're dead again. So is there programs that can help you with being efficient?
I mean, we're using another startup called Dolce, and I'm not as close to the daily scheduling as I probably should be, but I do know that in the past we've used similar tools where it's trying to automate the scheduling. The hard part in the hospitality industry is most people join the hospitality industry for its flexibility, and so it's in a perfect vacuum. Like, yes, it can work, but then when it's like, oh, by the way, it's a powder day, I'm out, and it throws the whole thing off. So I still think there's a huge manual component to scheduling, at least for us for now.
So flexibility is a hot topic right now with hospitality. The way operators schedule staff in Chamba is as easy as booking a Zoom meeting, right? You click on the calendar, it asks you, hey, who do you need? And having that large talent pool, we can get somebody there. So we don't run into the problem of like they can't come in because we have a large pool of talent. So that's how we tackle the whole scheduling. But when it comes to AI, we're not using that yet.
I think like the biggest place that we're starting to use AI and aside, we're not using any robots, but is just on all of the training materials and just a lot of the administrative work. I mean, even right now, I mean, it's like the barrier to entry for a restaurant is extremely high, but I do think like tools like ChatGPT are making it so much easier for new entrants to get into the industry. I mean, one of the things that I always share with people, I'm like, being a restaurant person is challenging because not only do you have to have a deep understanding of food, but you have to understand market, you have to understand your development plan, you have to understand building and how to reduce costs. And like tools like ChatGPT and how they made you an industry expert in pretty much everything if you ask the right questions is insane. And so I think just instantly, all of these young entrepreneurs or new entrepreneurs had all the resources that needed at their fingertips if they were willing to dig deep enough to ask the right questions. I mean, even right now, it's like, training is so important. And I look up to brands like Hillstone. I'm like, I don't understand how they're able to execute in that level, in that high of performance time and time again.
And you're talking about, I've been going to them for 30 years, and they've been doing it that long.
I mean, you go into Hillstone and you see every restaurant operator in Denver, and they're all sitting there. I kid you not. I'll go in there and I'll be like Juan Pedro, Troy Gard, and we're like, how the fuck are they doing this? But the point is, I mean, they figured out how to execute. And even recently, I've been able to put like, our training manuals in with Hillstone's training manuals, and I'm like, tell me where they're better than us, and help me figure out what we're missing. And I think historically now it's not an excuse of I don't have the right training tools. It's do I have the operational excellence to go execute this at scale? And that's where the disconnect's now. It's like now all of a sudden with AI, you got what you need. Like I had to do a development roadmap for build out of a new market. And I literally put it in there and I was like, just edit this as if you were a Chipotle development manager going into a new market. And I'm like, tell me 20 things I missed. Put it in there and let's just do that. So now we all have all the tools we need. It's about, do you have the bandwidth, the focus, and the operational excellence to go follow that roadmap. And historically, it's been you didn't have the roadmap and you had to kind of figure it out. Now we all have the roadmap. It's who can follow it and execute the plan.
Yeah, I mean, have you played around with ChatGPT for a menu item at all yet?
Yeah, of course. Like, the first 2 months, I tried every possible use case, but I put all of the food that we had, our entire menu, and then I was like, hey, what are some LTOs or different things that we could have there? I mean, yeah. Yeah, we haven't actually executed on one of them though.
Yeah, we've done a lot of hacking around with it, and I think what we found again is using a large language model in ChatGPT or Bard from Google on that is if you can pair it with someone else, pair it either with the person to do the execution at the end, or we actually pair it with some of our more standard machine learning algorithms that narrow it down where it has less choice. Because when it has less choice, you can get some pretty good answers. Whereas if you really throw a lot of stuff at it, that's where sometimes some of the making stuff up comes out of it overall. But it's definitely incredible tools to use. And again, I think it can eliminate some of that work that you don't necessarily want to spend your time doing, so then you can focus on the important parts.
The administrative work, I mean, in the end of the day, and especially in a restaurant, you can bog yourself down with the administrative work, but the only thing that matters is being on the floor with your guest, showing genuine hospitality. And now it's like, well, reviews are pretty simple, right? As long as I have the right data, you know, I don't need to worry about the grammatical error, you know, like taking that time. And so I've been pretty excited about it.
Yeah.
Do you guys see a future where servers are eliminated and replaced by smartphones and robots?
I mean,
AI?
you know, at least what we've seen is that, like, of course, this kind of goes to that huge ping pong of COVID. Like, COVID came and it was like, I mean, we pivoted overnight and had order at the table at every restaurant. I mean, we pivoted overnight and we were like, you order at the counter, you do this. We were like, this is the future. This is the only way it's going to. We've got a lot of polarizing views, and I kind of go to the extreme in every direction. So depending on the day, it'll be different. But when COVID hit, I mean, it was QR codes on every table. It was you got to use your phone for everything. It was QR code menus. And, you know, what the industry data is showing us is, like, people want menus back. Like, there's this huge ping pong back, and, like, people want to actually touch a menu. Most of our restaurants, we saw a huge drop off on table ordering. We're taking it out of restaurants, not putting it in restaurants. And I thought it was the future, you know? I was like, just makes sense, pay with your phone. And I do think when the technology gets better, the ability for quick payment and stuff like that's going to be very, very important, or, hey, call the waiter or whatever. But the idea of going to a full service restaurant experience and the whole phone being your whole order, that's just not what you're looking for. You're looking for community. You're looking for that sense of connection. So just like the fast food, you know, got that huge lift, I mean, we're seeing that bounce back on, you know, traditional ordering. Now, we still love handhelds, all different types of tech there. There's ways for better upsell through tech. There's endless support that AI and technology can support these team members. But, I mean, the hard part when COVID hit, all that tech was so clunky, it really made a lot of guests very upset because they couldn't even use it, you know? So they were like, oh, yeah, welcome to Perdita. We're 100% touchless, you know? But none of the tech works. So
are you saying you went back to putting menus out and not taking orders from the phones?
We accept advanced order. Our Birdcall is different, right?
Yeah,
but on full service dining, now we're 100% order at the table.
So I had this idea for years, because owning restaurants, servers can be a little frustrating. You pay them a lot, and they're on their phones the whole time when they feel like showing up, and they're in the mood to wait tables. And I thought, you know, you can go to the host stand, and the host can say, would you like, just like in the old days, smoking or non-smoking? It's like server or no server section. And let it be up to the guest to decide. And so one section, and they'll say, well, what's the difference? Well, this section, you don't have to tip because there's no server, so you save 20%. And we'll lower your prices 10% because we don't have to pay a server. So if you eat on that half of the restaurant, you save 30%. Well, I'm saving 30%. I could live without the guy playing a game of telephone is all it really is. I mean, how often does a server really make your meal? Not that often. And they mess up a lot. So what do you guys think of that idea?
Well, I think it's a bit of what I was saying before. Is I think there's going to be a hollowing out. I mean, I think to what Peter's point, there's going to be the part of folks who do want that service and they want that. And to your point, they're going to pay for it. But the flip side, fast food, we don't have it as much here. But I was just over in Ireland a couple weeks ago. You walk into a McDonald's there, you don't even see anybody.
They have one in Parker now.
Yeah, there's no staff at all until one person comes out and puts the bag down for you, and then that's it on it. So I think you're going to start to see exactly what you're talking about on the fast food side of there's not going to be people involved in it, or very, very few compared to what we have today.
And do you think that's because of a labor shortage or because of how expensive labor has gotten? That it's now more efficient, cheaper to just have machines do it for you. And McDonald's, you know, obviously they're for profit, and that their business, and they're doing that for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of a couple things. It's to Peter's point, the tech has gotten good enough now that it actually works on it, which is important. But yeah, I mean, labor continues to be, especially when you have the added challenge of your ingredient costs continuing to go up. You know, thankfully that's starting to come down a bit with it and stabilize on that piece. But the two combined definitely, I think, have pushed, especially in the fast food side, for ways to eliminate labor where they can.
I mean, every day somebody, whatever I post, somebody says that place is so expensive. There's no place that isn't so expensive. And there's just a number, I don't know what the number is, but probably about $17 is an average burger around town right now. And as the labor market, obviously minimum wage keeps going up. And, whether you guys know it or not, the margins are pretty thin in the restaurant business. For me, it was, average 6%. I don't know where it's at these days, but nationwide, it's usually about 6%, right?
Yeah, it's tough. But to me, this also still goes back to, are we solving the right problems? I don't have it. To me, the issue, at least from my perspective, is less of, hey, is it a service staff? It's how efficient that service staff is through their entire time at the restaurant, right? And I think that's where there's going to be huge opportunity for technology. That's a lot of the reason why we're really focused on technology in the back of the house, because you have the same problem that you have in the front of the house that you have in the back of the house, right? If you're only busy from 12 to 1, well, then you've got all of those people there that are there preparing you for that short shift. So it's like, how do we create tools, to make all of that time a little bit more efficient? So I do think it's like, there are different problems here, and I don't necessarily know if the having a full service experience or someone in the front of a restaurant is the actual problem that needs to be solved. And then I also think, regarding McDonald's, I think it's, what is that restaurant? What does it stand for? And what experience are you replacing? At McDonald's, like, I've never gone, it's not Chick-fil-A, right? You're not going in and someone's like, dude, welcome to Chick-fil-A. My pleasure. Here's your chicken sandwich. And then the sweetest lady comes and fills me up with lemonade. I'm like, this is the greatest place I've ever been in my life. That is not, no disrespect for McDonald's, but that's never been my experience there. So I think for Chick-fil-A to go and do that, I think the backlash would be huge. For McDonald's, I think it's like, dude, you're coming here for the cheapest food, the most efficient way, and you want it hot, right? And I think that kind of goes, that's where technology fills a perfect void, and it is an incredible tool. And in some regards, might actually be better than the experience that was being served previously. It's really about, like, what are you replacing, and is it adding more value? And if it's not adding more value, and it comes at the cost of diluting your brand, then I think there's some risks associated with that. I mean, you got to think your brand is everything. Your brand is everything. And is that story coming through? And if it is, well, then get as much technology as possible in there to make it more efficient and be more successful.
Should we grab some questions from the crowd?
I mean, I think that, to me, that's the perfect example of, like, let's let some other people experiment with it. I always tell the team, I'm like, we move at the speed of Chili's. You know what I mean? You see and you read in the daily news all of the risks that certain restaurants are taking, right? Adding, that was always the challenge of dining in San Francisco. I was like, every restaurant had a different surcharge or a different fee associated with it. I don't even know what the pricing is in this city. So that's why I've always been like, it's up to us to manage our margin. Let's move with the national brands, right? Because they're seeing a lot of things that we're not seeing. And then, at least from that perspective, I love the idea, but I also think, like, we've been doing things like this in the past with happy hours and different tools to get them in those off periods of time. Now, should there be a tool that helps us better analyze when those down periods are so we can build programming around it? I think so. But I get worried about, like, wait a minute, dude, I just went to Birdcall and now it's a $10 sandwich because it's busy. I don't know how that story's going to play out, and I'll let someone else figure it out.
So back in the old days, I used to manage a restaurant in New York City, right by Radio City Music Hall. And we had 5 different menus, and each one had a star from 1 star to 5 stars. And it was up to the manager to decide what menu to use, depending on what show was at Radio City. So when it was the Christmas, with the Rockettes, it was the 5-star menu. And in the summer, where the city's dead, it was the 1-star menu. So you could literally come in and have a $10 Reuben, and then the next week have a $15 Reuben. And in New York City, they actually now do have surge pricing at hotter restaurants. If you want a 7 o'clock, it's going to cost you more than if you come at 5 o'clock. And I think AI will probably be leading that, and I love that idea.
Well, I think that's the key part of it, is to even do that. The first part is understanding the data, which restaurants are notoriously not that great at a lot of times understanding their data. And then if you're trying to do it at volume, it's really hard. So that is one of the areas where having the right tool set can be helpful. And then ultimately it's up to you then make a decision, right? What type of experience you want to create based on that. But the first step is actually try to understand, in real time, what are you looking at from your demand side and from your cost side.
And one of the things that's so important to understand is how historically, in order to solve the problem of your restaurant, you'd have a very complex tech stack. And so I think that's a lot of things that new restaurant groups are really looking for, is to be able to bring that data all the way through their guest experience. All this data is just siloed in different places, and it's not really connecting all together, which is why people don't really understand their guests when they're operating restaurants.
Can you speak to how you're leveraging AI or any part of the tech stack in your loyalty program, and how that kind of plays into the dining experience?
Yeah, and that goes back to our core, because we built our own proprietary, and I'll talk specifically on Birdcall. Our full service restaurant, we're using Toast, we're about to link in Olo, and we're going to have a traditional loyalty platform. Birdcall, we're really trying to build our own tech stack it's our own POS, and that's where our focus on the build is really to create live loyalty. So right now the loyalty we're in the middle of the build. So we're about to launch an app that just uses an off-the-shelf loyalty program. But what's so cool about a fast food experience is you know who the user is right when they arrive, which is different than a full service experience. If you don't have a reservation platform, you really don't know who this guest is. Like, no one's really solved that. Like, when I sit down at Chili's, they don't know who I am until I swipe my card at the end, at which point they lost this huge opportunity to customize the experience. So where I think the future of loyalty is in restaurants in particular, in the fast food world, is like, if I know it's Pete right when he walks in the door, before we've even made his food, and I have his whole history, I have, like user set, I should be able to make live adjustments to that guest experience to wow the living junk out of them, right? I think it's, how do we build, we can't stop talking about hospitality. I mean, in the end of the day, that's what we do. And so, when we're building technology, it's not from how are we more efficient? How do we cut people? It's how do we deliver hospitality? And I think loyalty got so dude, you buy 10 sandwiches, you get one free. And I think there's some magic in the power of moments. And how can we build loyalty that actually releases that hospitality in an authentic way? And I think you can do it. I think there's ways to build these use cases to set these team members up to be successful. And so that's really the problem that we're working on. That we've been dreaming about it for 5 years, and so it will be coming out. It might be a total disaster.
You said when they walk in. How do you know who they are when they walk in?
You initiate a transaction at Birdcall with a card. So the second you start a Birdcall experience, I know it's Peter.
So they have a loyalty card, they swipe the card.
Your credit card or some unique identifier.
So do you then have a concern about personal information security about your customers and buying habits of your customers in that scenario?
All of that, all of our credit card processing, everything there, it's out of scope for us. So the only thing that we're really connecting to is Peter, and he likes original chicken sandwiches.
I think to that point, though, that gets a little bit to what Peter was saying, is that it's the hospitality, it's the trust, right? You have to have the trust with your customers on that piece, that they're willing to share that, so that they have the better experience on it overall. And then that's, I think, also, too, we're partnering with the right technology partners who are looking at that and taking care of it is important, too, because, I think we've all seen, however many breaches in the last couple months. A lot of times it's from... Yeah, right. Exactly. It's a lot of times it's from some third party down the way. So if you are an operator and you are looking at technology partners, make sure you do your homework with it and try to understand, okay, what are they doing to protect the data that's coming through?
Yeah, and just to be clear, we have very, very smart people handling that, and it is not me. But And, I think it's just like, looking at Amazon or Instagram or any of these tools where it's able to make recommendations based on what you like and what you love. And I think there's just that opportunity to provide that level of authenticity and hospitality through technology. More so than, those traditional loyalty systems, they have that information. They're just not using it in the right way. And I think there's just such a more powerful way to use that information in the right way.
Hello. So as we look into the future here, obviously Birdcall has many locations here in Colorado and other states. How would you say AI plays a part into scaling a business from 1 location to 2 to 3 and so on there?
Yeah, I think as it relates to our tech stack, it's not necessarily integrated yet, but we know it will be, right? You're seeing all of these new, every day you're hearing about another company and the way that they're bringing AI in to analyze their data to set them up to be successful. In the short term, I'm using it at the surface level, right? Hey, hey, we're going into a new market entry, what am I not thinking about? And, take a look at, here's our entry plan and, analyzing our marketing plans, digital creative, all kinds of things like that. Even historically a year ago, right? Before ChatGPT, we'd have a marketing session and a brainstorm session to be like, we need to come up with creative ideas. You know how easy that is now? It's like, give me 50 creative ideas for a marketing entry plan for Birdcall. And it's like, I don't like any of those. Give me 100. I like this subset. Let's do more like this. It's just, so it's like the brainstorming, the session, it's just completely shift to being like just operational, execution. And so you got to constantly remind ourselves that just run everything through that lens. And what I love the most about it is I think I was too proud to ask for feedback, but I feel very, very comfortable asking, ChatGPT or Bard for feedback. Like it's very constructive. They're not mean. They have my best interest at heart. At least I hope. And I'm able just to be like, look at this. What mistakes did I make? And you got to filter that. And it's all about that input engineer and making sure you're giving the right prompt. But I think if you are, I think you can gain a lot of short-term competitive advantage.
Hospitality, like how do you think about what you build internally, whether it's technology or building your own business and your culture, versus what you can buy into? So you mentioned you use Toast, right? I would expect that to really be the main platform for your loyalty and for your payments and all that stuff. Where is the line for you all on how you make those decisions?
Yeah, and the problem with Toast or Aloha or any of these tools for that matter, that's one of our competitive advantages at Birdcall is we're solving for a single use case. Like Toast is solving for 1 million use cases, right? And now they're even outside of the POS doing payroll, financing. It just keeps going, and it's just like, that was when we first started. We used like Future POS and all these legacies, and I'm like, I probably used 2 of the 1 million features they had, and I feel like we're just creating that same problem. At Birdcall, we only build a feature if it gets requested by the team. So we have a really tight feedback loop, and the team is actually building out the feature set. But more so than that, I think it's just the reminder. I think we're starting to see that, right? I think we've seen restaurants fail that used as much tech as possible and lost the hospitality, saw their internal feedback or their guest feedback scores plummet and sales drop off. I think that hospitality and realizing that's still the center of everything it's got to be a belief system from the the individual and the company that's actually building the brand.
Yeah, and from the tech side, there's definitely such a thing as way too many tools for people to use, and that's one of the reasons why we went the route of a browser extension, because that way the operator is still going directly to their distributor site, buying the way they have to. You're not having to change their behavior, and that's probably one of the key things when you're talking about how do you augment is how do you allow them to still do the same process or use some of the same systems that they have, and you just give them a tool that helps them do that without having to go log into something completely different, learn a new tool or the rest of it.
That's a funny story. Early in our days, I was like, oh, wait a minute, this tool gives you 2% on margin. This tool gives you 2% on sales lift. Dude, by the end of this, I'll be at 100% store sales will be up, and I'll be, 100% store level margin. And, sales went down and margin went down. So I was like, it's about using the tools that you can actually manage. And that's where we hope we get, right? The problem with all these tech tools is they rely so heavily on the individual to actually, to follow through on whatever the recommendation is. And that's really where our focus is like, how can we provide authentic hospitality through technology and complete the loop, right? It's the same problem with these robots. If I got to load the robot off, if I got to clean the robot, if I got to kick the robot out of the way when we're trying to cook, robot is more of a pain than it's worth. And I still think we're just in this huge transition period where one day it's going to be a complete loop. Until it's a complete loop, we're not going to have robots in our restaurants. And when we do, we got to make sure it's the right robot for that right concept, and it actually is positive as it relates to the value prop to the guest and the overall brand.
Just a quick one following up on that. So how do you balance your investment in the people who are helping you with the tech? I presume, do you have and I guess this specifically for you, Peter, are you hiring software developers? Are you bringing in consultants? How do you balance all that? And how many do you need to help you build this tech stack you're building?
Well, and once again, I'm not a tech person. I should never have started a tech company ever. I just was too dumb, and I've kind of always believed that anything's possible. Early in the days, I was like, oh, we're gonna start a tech show. I watched Silicon Valley, so I'm like, okay, I clearly got this. I'm going to San Francisco, and I was walking the streets, and I was in these shops, and they were like, oh, it'll be $2 million to build this. I'm like, well, I've got 300 grand, so that's not gonna work. So we ended up building a team. We had a nice lady who had a company called Therapy Partners in Denver, and when the tech originally started, she lent us a couple engineers to build the original prototype, which that was a complete disaster. But we kept, right now I see the ability that we're still building after 8 years is the win. And it's easier to sell a chicken sandwich than it is to sell a tech platform, at least from my perspective. But we've got an in-house team of about 5. We're doing some nearshore engineering in Bolivia. They're a part of our team, so they work directly with our product team here in the States. And we've got, I think, 3 engineers in Denver product, and then our overall leader, who was actually the original person who started with the team. So growing very, very slowly because we can't overburden the tech. I mean, one thing we didn't talk about today is just how hard tech startups are, and extending that runway even a day. It's you've got to make these challenging decisions. So we're building a sustainable technology company. We're doing it slow. We're focusing on a single use case. But because, when I look at Toast and I look at some of these other brands, we're able to outpace them with a team of 7. So maybe we've got 8. So a small and mighty team focused on one problem is so much more powerful than a very, very large team. And then it's just keep that runway as long as you possibly can. But we're always hiring,
Hello, I'm really intrigued by your customer experience idea, and I'm just kind of curious if you looked at, kind of opt-in and allowing a customer to opt in and allow for, maybe having a face recognition system and a POS system and an ordering system, connect all those 3 pieces, and a credit card system, connect all those pieces together, and then essentially allow, on the first visit, you learn all those pieces of information about the customer, and then on the second visit, you have all that already experienced. You can customize that experience. Have you looked at anything like that?
Yeah, and early in our days, we kind of invested in a facial recognition company, and I think some of that technology is just not there. I think we kind of want to see a clear leader, and I think it's really easy to get in there and be like, wait a minute, we can create all of this magic, but then get distracted from the core problem. And our core problem that we're really focused on is our team members, how to set them up to be successful. So even though, yes, we see long term, I mean, it makes sense, whether it's your palm or your face, there's some way to make this guest experience more fluid and faster. I think right now we're pretty happy with how that experience is working. And, just I want to see how some of these other tools go across other brands first. That technology will be available. It's just a question of when it's going to be the right time for us to implement it. And we've got some different tech problems that we're solving on kind of the user that we got to get done first. But
thank you so much for the information. We work with a lot of the Spanish-speaking entrepreneurs in Colorado. Our organization is called Adelante Community Development. And we are looking into coaching these restaurants and food industry, mostly in food trucks. And one of the questions they always ask us is, how much should we be investing on this new technology? Is there a percentage that you recommend based on, how big the restaurant is, how big the revenue is, how many employees they have? And I think there's a cultural shock for Spanish-speaking entrepreneurs that are getting into these new opportunities of innovation that they haven't been really exposed to. And so we are building some of these systems for them, but it's very challenging, of course, to, like you said, it's easier to sell a chicken sandwich, but this technology, it's a must. Now businesses without this technology, they're not able to really, be in the map and exist. And so we want to coach them on what is an average cost that they should be investing into these new platforms that are needed to thrive. Thank you.
And I'll pass this down, but I mean, I think it's one of the biggest mistakes that I've made building restaurants is I've always tried to solve tomorrow's problems. I haven't tried to solve today's problems. And so like Birdcall experienced some success, and then we opened a Birdcall in Colorado Springs, and I built it like a Chick-fil-A. Well, Chick-fil-A's got a 30-year head start on me. I don't need a Chick-fil-A. And so now we're on our 4th prototype for the restaurant based on how we're actually doing today. And if we bust at the seams, great, that's a good problem, then we'll adjust moving forward. Same thing's the case with technology. Like, get the tool that they need today, and then as they evolve, they can evolve that tech stack. But like for a food truck or a neighborhood food truck, I mean, tools like Square are incredible. They're extremely affordable. They have, it's what it was built for. So there's happy to go offline or connect at any point. I mean, there's also this great organization, Eat Denver in Denver, and it's all about building up local Denver restaurants. But I mean, looking for a simple tool like that and then letting that evolve your business.
I mean, I can talk from it just trying to sell technology into the food service space is for the large companies that we work with, it's saving a point either on labor or on product, right? So you've got to be replacing it one way or another because the margins are already too thin. So I think exactly at Peter's point of only solving what you need today and making sure that, yes, it's actually going to save you the labor, or it's going to save you money in what you buy on the product side, and that's how you budget for it.
I don't think there's an exact answer. What percentage of your budget you should be spending on technology, is there?
Well, we have two extremes, right? Gustamo, we're using off-the-shelf white-labeled stuff, and Birdcall custom, which doesn't make sense unless you have a long-term vision of what that tech means. But there is some really, the great thing about the restaurant space is there's a lot of people doing it. There's a lot of great mentors. There's people to guide you on a path. And there is a lot of great tech.
Have you heard of the HRA, the Hispanic Restaurant Association? You know John over there? Cezanne, right? Yeah. Elevate and educate. That's his goal.
I think we got time for one last one, probably.
And I'm going to be a strange question, probably. So I'm involved in Internet of Things, actuators, sensors, and things of that nature. I'm also in the hospitality business in a small way. And so what I'm interested in knowing is when it comes to things like bathroom cleaning, floor cleaning, table cleaning, keeping things full, keeping things warm or cold, have you looked at options for robotics type of things or tools to take care of those aspects of the in-store experience?
The hardest thing to do is keep a restaurant clean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like, and clean, it looks very different to different people. So I think we're always looking for tools to be more successful at that. Right now we're using, we just recently onboarded a new platform called Jolt. It's used by like Chick-fil-A and tools like that, and it's like a task management tool, and it's the best thing I've seen yet, where it's like, hey, I forget what we call them, but we have a picture of the perfect picture, and we're like, take a picture. Does it look like the perfect picture? And there's like QR codes around the restaurant, and there's the ability to integrate with sensors and prep printers, and so it's a little bit of a bandwidth now to have full perfect implementation of that across the system. But we're starting to see the power of it. Right now, we're just like, does this restaurant look like the perfect one? And if they can get 90% of that, that's a win. But I kid you, like the hardest part is like, as restaurants grow, that's where they often fall off because they stop going in them. They stop seeing what's broken. They stop seeing what needs to be repaired and what needs to be cleaned. That's why we got to live in these things.
And have you thought of, as a second into that, integrating your apps, your customer apps, with like access to the bathroom or need for something to be cleaned up where they are?
Not yet, but that's a good idea.
All right.
Yeah. What's it called? Yeah. Cool.
Awesome. Well, I think that's about our time. So a big thank you to Larry and Peter and Diego on it. Let's give our panelists a round of applause, please. And thank you all taking the time this morning.